Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Allen Luck Fishing YouTube channel. What you're seeing here is the results of event 2 of the Virginia Elite 70 series. Basically, I practiced on Friday, tournament event on Saturday, and it did nothing but downpour the whole entire time. So what you see here is literally 2 days of fishing in the rain and nothing but rain. And what we did was we camped out. We do this every event, but neither of us were expecting the weather to be this awful. Luckily for James, the cool thing is he had all of his stuff in Tupperware containers so you could sit it out in the rain and leave it. I, on the other hand, had so much crap in the back of my truck that I actually ended up having to sleep in the cab, which sucked. I tried to lean the seat back. I tried to lay sideways across the seat and put the center console up. Nothing really worked. I didn't sleep really well. I don't think it really affected me on tournament day that bad, but it's now Monday night and I'm still feeling the results of the lack of sleep. Stay tuned. I'm going to give you a little recap of how the event went. It went well. I wouldn't say it went bad from any stretch of the imagination. After a wet tournament is you want to look in your cases and see if there's any moisture. Usually moisture will form on the inside of the lid. You'll see moisture in the bottoms of the container, on your actual baits. And if you see that, you want to make sure to take them out, put them on, I put them out on paper towels, any absorbent material that you can sit it on that will actually help to kind of dry out everything. You want to do that. I also put a fan on everything to let the fan blow overnight. Guys, what I'm doing now is just to save time. One of the biggest problems is treble hooks interlocking in your boxes. And then you gotta sit there and do this. And so what I like to do is I will take my hard baits and I will actually put these hook covers, plastic hook covers. They're very inexpensive. You can get them at Bass Pro Shops is where I usually get them from. But you just slide it over your treble hooks and you lock them into place. And what that does is when you put them in your boxes, much like you see here, all I have to do is grab my crankbait and it comes out without any issues. So saves you a lot of time on the water. Time is crucial when you're fishing tournaments. And so you go into your boxes, all you have to do is pull them out, dislodge the hooks, tie it up, and you're good to go. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the segment of kind of how I deal with wet gear after a tournament. Kerr Lake was an extremely wet tournament. It rained for 2 straight days, and as I explained before, it really made for a memorable event in the fact that you had to just deal with the really wet conditions, sleep in your truck, and that's tournament fishing, that's grinding, and they're the kind of memories that you'll look back on. We only camped on Friday night because Kerr Lake was close enough that we could both travel to the event and save on a single night of camping. And so we both got down there on Friday morning. We had previously fished on Saturday, and Had not found a ton. We caught a lot of fish, but Friday before the tournament, which is the official practice day, was really when we started putting our stuff together. I drove my boat down to the actual event, and so James and I practiced separately during the practice day. And what that allows you to do, and I definitely recommend this for any team that has two boats to utilize, is you can cover more water. So James and I were able to talk over the course of the day about what he was doing, what I was doing, and it kind of gives you a larger picture instead of running water together, which kind of limits you. And so during the practice day, James was focusing on looking for beds. And he was able to find a couple beds that ended up being very key for us during the actual event. And just to show you how crucial bed fish are, he landed on a bed in which there was a 4+ pounder on it. And multiple anglers were going over there in the course of the practice day. And literally he put his power poles down in the bass cat and sat there and made sure that multiple teams weren't able to actually see that bed. If he wouldn't have stayed on that bed, other teams definitely would have found that. Like I've said in my previous blogs, these are some of the best anglers from Virginia, from North Carolina, and Maryland. And so you can't give these guys anything because they will put it to you and really, really hurt you. Even though it was raining, we had all of our AFCO rain suits, which I will say over the 2 days of fishing kept both of us completely dry. Not a single drop got on me, and that really helps you to remain comfortable over the course of your fishing day. On the tournament day, our plan was to focus on these bedding bass that James had found. And so right off the bat, we went to James's biggest fish that he had on a bed. We came into this cove to start our day, and there was already one team that was fishing the Virginia Elite 70 that was in that same cove. Lucky for us, they didn't know that bed was there. And so they fished that whole area. We were very professional about it. We made sure to talk with the team before we came in right behind them, just like, hey, do you mind if we fish behind you, kind of thing. And they were fine with it. They ended up fishing right past that bed without ever knowing that it was there. And we were able to come behind it. James locked onto that bed, put the power poles down, and he fished that bed. And tell me, he fished that bed. It ended up being a 4+ pound male. That's right, a male. And let me tell you, he fished that bed. This was the first spot that we went to, and blast off was probably around 7 a.m. We fished on the same bed till 10:30 a.m. Meanwhile, I'm in the back of the boat, just fan casting the area. I ended up catching 2 or 3 keeper-sized bass. Most of all were culled out by the end of the event. I think I had one that was my first fish that I caught on a spinnerbait that ended up being, I think, our smallest keeper of the day. But every fish counts, and that fish ended up making the cut for us in terms of having our 5 bass limit. And so James fished it for the longest time. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in the back of the boat. My head is in a complete turmoil situation. Like we better run to new spots. We're sitting here all day. We're not going to catch our limit. What are we going to do? This is where it gets crazy. James hooked the bass on a jig, and as he was bringing it back to the boat, there was multiple times, in fact, that he basically called me out saying, this fish is about to bite. So I went and grabbed the net and was sitting there ready, not fishing myself, but just sitting there ready to have the net for him so that we could get in this big fish. So, like I said, he hooks the fish on a jig, turns it, starts to bring it to the boat. It came up and spit the hook on a jig. He made sure to use a very, very stout hook. In fact, he upgraded his hook just to make sure that he could keep this bass on the line. And despite every single action that he took to ensure that we would get this bass in the boat, the way fishing goes sometimes, the fish came off. And so luckily the bass went right back to the bed, but it was extremely weary of baits after that. So we have to be back at the dock at 3:30. It's 10:30 now. We only have 2 fish in the boat, which are the ones that I caught off the bat. And I'm sitting there freaking out that we're not going to get a limit. And so we ran multiple other places. James ended up catching 2 fish on beds in one cove that really helped us out. And then we continued to run around for a lot of the rest of the day. And it was a whirlwind. We ended up going back to the same spot that he had hooked that big one. And luckily, like I said before, that bass went right back to that bed. And after giving it a little bit of rest period, luckily no other team had gone in there and caught that bass. So James ended up catching that fish with about 15 minutes left before we had to be in at weigh-in. It ended up being a male that was 4.73, I believe it was. And so, like our first tournament where I caught that key fish on a jerkbait, having that one key fish is what sent us into a position that we were in contention. Not the winning bag by any means, but a bass that still kept us in contention. And so we came back to the ramp. We had no idea how we had done as a whole. Just like the first event, it ended up being pretty tough conditions, and it kind of stacked the weights pretty well. And so we ended up getting back to the dock. We weighed in our fish, but what I kind of found out from the Virginia Elite 70, and I'm sure a lot of the other circuits are like this, even though we were boat 67, I think it was, in the tournament. No, we were 69. Yeah, 69. A lot of the boaters that have big bags wait till the end of the event, so they kind of are a little less stressed out. They don't have to wait the whole entire weigh-in to see if their weights hold up. And so by the time we weighed in, there was boats that were bringing their bags in from the first and the second flights, and it made for some extreme stress sitting there trying to figure out how we did overall. And so those other boats coming in from the first and second flight to weigh their fish once they kind of knew what the target weight was, kind of kept moving us down the leaderboard. And if you've ever been in a tournament and had to kind of hold out to kind of see where you hang at the end, that position that you are never stands up. So I sat and I watched this go from 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. And we just kept going down and down and down to the point where there was 4 or 5 more teams to weigh in. And we were in 10th and 11th spot of the 12 that gets checks. And so I just sat there and I was just hoping that we would do better than we did in the last event. And we were so close. We weighed in 15.73 pounds total. And unfortunately, 12th place was 15.74. So that just shows you how tight tournament angling is. We were 1/10 of an ounce from making it into the top 12 and getting our first paycheck of the year. There's nothing else more to say other than James wants me to find another rod sponsor now, because 13 has been our lucky number this year. Points are key in this series, and the fact that we finished in 13th again has moved us into 7th place in the Angler of the Year race. And so we are at the point now where we have a chance to really make a run for the team of the year if we do good in these next 3 events. The key baits that we had kind of focused on was, just like Smith Mountain Lake, fishing the jig with a lot of orange and dyeing our craws, the tips, orange. I threw a jerkbait a bunch. I didn't get any bites on the jerkbait, but like I said in the last video, I'm gaining a lot of confidence in this. I'm seeing how I'm going to be able to throw this in multiple scenarios, and I may even have a jerkbait tied on in every event I fish this year. James had also had success, and I did too during the practice day, fishing topwater baits. So I was fishing a Zara spook. This is the rattling spook. So this is a little louder. Maybe if I would have fished maybe the more silent version, maybe I would have gotten more bites on it. But I did get a couple bites that were key on it. And like all topwaters, I found that braid is key. Braid allows you to cast a longer distance than you would fishing with monofilament or fluorocarbon. And the great thing about braid is there's no stretch, and so you can really kind of horse, for lack of better words, those fish towards the boat in a way that you couldn't with line types like monofilament that has a lot of stretch, or fluorocarbon that even has a little bit of stretch. And so I threw this a bunch. I didn't get a lot of bites on the tournament day, but springtime is great for topwaters, whether it be your walking baits like the Zara spook. I think James was fishing a Lucky Craft gunfish, which is another very predominant topwater during the springtime. And I also, once again, reverting back to the shaky head, caught a few fish on the shaky head during the event. None that we weighed in, but when you're spending a lot of time fishing on beds, every extra bite that you can get when you're trying to focus on that one bedding bass is key. So last but not least, like and subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social at Alan Luck Fishing, and make sure to drop a comment below and tell me how you like these videos. I want to keep continuing to do them. Tell me if there's any ideas you have for videos, or ideas for things that you would like to see, because that's really what's going to drive my channel and help me in the long run. So with nothing left to say, see you at Lake Gaston.